All right, good morning, YouTube. I am back with another video. In this one, we are going to be focusing on probate. I get people all the time that send me deals, and you find out later on someone died that was on title. So for this example, I know I have some stuff already in here, but we're going to say John and Ann. So we're going to say that John and Ann are on title, okay? And let's say Ryan is the kid. So you're on the phone with Ryan. Ryan agrees to sell you the property, but his parents own the property. Okay. And what happened to them? They both died. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to consider in that situation. So we're going to start with scenario 2. So number one thing that we're going to ask Ryan, do you have any other siblings? It doesn't matter if Ryan talks to the siblings. Doesn't matter if he agrees with the siblings. Doesn't matter what they agreed on verbally. What matters is, do you have any other siblings? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, they're unfortunately going to need to be involved. Like whether it be them getting off of the case right away or them being involved in a part owner of the property. So that's the one key thing to find out. So the next one is, did any siblings you have pass away? So then let's say Ryan says, no, I don't have any siblings. And you say, okay, but did you ever have siblings? Like, did any of them die? And he's like, oh yeah, my brother died years ago, and he didn't want anything to do with the property. Well, it doesn't matter if he wanted nothing to do with the property. Did he sign what's called a renunciation form, which I'll talk about in a second? Did he sign that? If the answer is still no, then your sibling has something to do with the property. So now you need to find out, did they have any kids? So let's say it's Ryan and then Evan, who's my brother. So Evan died. Sorry, Evan. Love you. Evan died. So now it's gonna come down to Evan had 3 kids. Okay, so now the ownership is Ryan as a 50% owner and each of Evan's kids at 16.8% or whatever ownership of the property. Now, it's going to depend on also how we owned the property, but that's for scenario 1. So with that being said, all the kids would have to agree to sell. And if all the kids just say, hey, no, the property's Ryan's, it's fine, like I don't want anything to do with it, they can sign what's called a renunciation form. A renunciation form basically says like, hey, I know I have ownership of the property, but I don't want anything to do with it. I'm giving up my ownership to whoever. In this case, it would be Ryan. So all 3 of those kids would sign the renunciation form, which is prepared by the attorney. And then now they're done with the process and Ryan became a 100% owner and he can handle all the probate. So that kind of quickly explains what a renunciation form is. The other scenario from scenario 2 is that the parents were on title. So let's say again, it's John and Ann and Ryan is the kid of John and Ann, but John and Ann got divorced. So let's say it was 1990. They got divorced in 1990. They died in 2000. Well, now instead of Ryan just becoming the owner, did John or Ann get remarried? No. Okay. Like we need to find out what's going on with the property. Did they both agree to pass the property down to their kid? Did they have a will? That's where things get a little dicey, is when a divorce is involved, because then it's a whole different conversation. Maybe John got remarried to his wife, Susie, and he agreed that when he dies, Susie gets everything. Well, now technically Susie is a 50% owner of this property with Ann, but Ann died and Ann passed the property down to Ryan. So now Ryan and Susie are 50-50 owners. So Ryan's agreeing to sell to you and you think all is well and he signs and everything, and then it goes to probate and the attorney looks at it and she's like, hey, John got remarried to Susie. We need to contact Susie. And Ryan says, I don't even know who Susie is. It basically, when that happens, it's just such a gray area that it's really tough to keep the deal alive. That's why whenever I get a probate, I don't really ever count on them closing, even when they seem to be the most clear-cut case, because a lot of times it's just, there's a lot of scenarios that go into it and can mess things up. So that's really the basis of, this situation with parents on title. Now the other one, which is also really common, these are like the 2 most common scenarios. And I know I started at 2. I should have redid that, but that's fine. So scenario 1 is you have 2 people on title. So we're going to delete this out. We're going to say Ryan and Evan. Ryan and Evan, brothers, on title, on the property, and Brendan. We'll say Brendan too, that's my other brother. So scenario one, we'll just say 3 people on title. Well, we'll go with 2 people. Sorry, Evan. We already used you as an example, so we'll take you out. Okay, so Ryan and Brendan on title. 2 people on title, 1 died, so it's going to obviously be Brendan. Brendan died, 1 wants to sell. Ryan wants to sell. So now the question is going to be, how did we own the property? Now there's a couple, there's like 6 different ways that you can own a property, but the 2 most common are tenants in common and rights to survivorship. So if you have rights to survivorship, that means that if one person dies, the other one becomes an owner. No probate is needed, which saves thousands of dollars and a headache. But if you have like tenants in common or joint tenancy, that means I'm a 50% owner and Brendan's a 50% owner, which then in turn would mean that if Brendan passed away, did he have any kids? Who did he pass the property to? Did he have a wife? All these things matter. And it doesn't matter if, let's say Ryan and Brendan own the property and Brendan never paid the tax on it all these years. And you go to the tax collector website and you see Ryan's name is on there, Ryan's address, you see all this stuff. You're like, okay, wow. So it looks like Ryan is the owner. And then Ryan tells you, yeah, I own the property with my brother, but it's my property. He told me to do whatever I want with it. It's my property. It's still not your property. Like until a renunciation form is signed or some kind of letter that states that, hey, I have no interest in this property and it's notarized and all that stuff, Brendan is still a 50% owner, which means that he needs to be involved with anything that happens on the deal. So really for probate, those are the 2 most common ones. And like I said, the biggest myth in it is, hey, my name's on the tax bill. That's happened a lot where, so we'll say John and Ann are the parents and Ryan is just one of the few siblings that they have. Like that, let's say they have 3. Ryan is the sibling to John and Ann. John and Ann die. Ryan, you see his name on the tax bill. He's the one that contacted you. He's the one that's agreeing to sign. Everything's going to look like he's the owner. And he's going to tell you, yeah, my parents died. They had a will. I got the property. Well, that's not always true either, because a lot of times a will isn't super specific. It'll say something like, Ryan gets all of our property in Florida, and it'll be notarized and everything will be good. And you'll say, okay, well, that's pretty clear. Ryan's going to get the property in Florida. But Florida laws, at least with the attorneys that I've worked with, they all have an issue with that language. You need to have the specific address, the specific legal description. You need to have everything laid out clear as day so there are no questions to be asked by any judge or anyone who signs off on the property. So if it doesn't clearly lay it out, it's not notarized. Like if there's any kind of like discrepancy in this process, then unfortunately probate's going to be needed and all the siblings are going to need to be involved. Doesn't matter who's on title, doesn't matter the case. So really that's the main things. Let the key takeaway be, if people died and they're on title, probate's probably needed. If all the people died. If only one person died and they were husband and wife, the main question is, were you guys still married? If you were still married at the time of death, then that spouse should be the owner of the property. If 2 people died and they were just friends, cousins, they weren't married, they were brothers, whatever the case may be, if one person died, probate's probably needed, depending on how they owned it. If they owned it with rights to survivorship, probate won't be needed. And then again, if parents are on title, were they divorced? No. Okay, great. Other parent owns it. Both parents died. Again, were they divorced? No. Okay, it goes to the kids, clear cut day. And then Ryan, you were one of the kids. Do you have any other siblings? Did any other siblings die? All those things are really important to understand. The easiest way of going about this is when John and Ann pass away, they just had 1 kid and that 1 kid wants to sell you the property. That is usually the easiest probate, and you can kind of count on those closing, but usually something happens and they get really messy and, things don't ever go as planned. So if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say maybe 1/3, 33% of probates actually close. And the other 2/3, just issues happen. People aren't willing to cooperate. One sibling is refusing to sign because they think that they can get $100,000 for the property that's worth $30,000. See all that different kind of stuff. So that's pretty much it for this video. Went on a little longer than I thought, but there are a lot of things with probate that's always comes up. So I hope you learned something, and thanks for watching.